Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams.
All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast today, Building Great Sales Teams. We are live with my buddy Mark. He's the president and CEO of Futura Security Group. It's an independent agency of family heritage, and he's an expert in door-to-door, business-to-business. He's got 17 years in the business, winning top producers and top team awards, and he's done over 9 million in team production. He's also responsible for the corporate and, of course, the training for his own agency. Mark, welcome to the show, brother, and happy birthday.
Yeah, wow. I'm surprised to see that. I haven't looked like that in a long time. So, definitely pre-beard, pre-pubescent even, probably.
You got a good jawline going there. And when I saw it, I was like, is that Jim from The Office? I was like, that is perfect,
Yeah.
So we had to catch you a little off guard and share that. And but no, brother, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, man. Glad I don't look like that anymore.
Dude, he looks great. I mean, the beard is just like, now you're a sage, wise man. You know what I mean? So, all right, brother. We met at Apex Evolution. I had just graduated the class of 001. I was volunteering. I think you had just joined Apex maybe, or were newer. And yeah, that was a special way to meet, I could say. What was that experience like for you?
That's a great question. Transformational it's really hard to put words to it, but I love doing stuff like that. And someone asked me if it was worth it. Let me just put it this way. And I said, well, if you like getting your butt kicked and seeing what you're made of, absolutely. And if that's not your jam, then absolutely not. And for me, I love getting my butt kicked and seeing what I'm made of. So, and to be around other people that love the same thing. I was listening to a podcast on the way to work, and they're talking about that if you want to meet special people, go to the gym, but not just anytime. There's people getting after it at 6 p.m. Go to the gym at 5 a.m. That's a unique type of person that likes to kick their butt first thing in the morning, then go kick butt in business. And guess what? I was up at 4:45 when the alarm went off today. 5 to 6 was the workout, and I was on my way to get to the office for a 7 o'clock meeting. So I love stuff like that.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah. I will say, like, out of the whole group, I was watching you, and there was just no complaints. It was just following orders, hitting the dirt, you know what I'm saying? And then when we were doing presentations and everything, there you were with your pen and your pad writing notes, and I always appreciate someone that could take that route of, oh, I know everything. I've made millions of dollars, built out these amazing teams and everything. And they could take that, like, sit back and not really put in the work, you know what I mean? Or I guess feel like they know everything already, right? But you took the opposite path. You're still a student, you're still learning every day, which I love. And I appreciated seeing from most of the participants there as well. So it was an awesome experience to be on the other side too, not getting my ass kicked and just kind of helping out. Man, I don't miss
your
that.
Coffee like these guys have no idea what they're in store for. I don't know. Exactly. Usually I have my notebook to my left here. I cleaned off my desk a while back, so it's probably on my shelf, but I have my notebook that I took notes with, so I can refer to it right within arm's reach.
Yeah. We got lucky. They printed out, for our class, they printed out binders, and it had those questions in there. And so, like, it had all my answers written in the binder. And for the longest time, I had the binder, and I would go back to the binder, whether it was like for content or just like I was facing something challenging, and I was able to go back and reference that. If you guys don't know, Apex for a couple of years put on this event called Evolution, and they brought in basically high-level military operators to basically train us like a very, like, maybe 1% of 100% of buds, right? So it's like the very toned down version of buds, where you got chicken soup in the middle of the training.
Buds for kindergartners. Yeah.
Buds for kindergartners.
Story time. Gather around the fire. We're gonna teach you something.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, it was an awesome experience. So
I was looking forward to going back to that. I'll share this other thing. I also did a 2.5 day event earlier in the year with
okay.
Jocko's group at Echelon Front, probably in April. And that's,
Mhm.
high stress situation, laser taggers going through the laws of
Okay.
combat and how they apply to
Love that.
business. And that was very, very fun and educational as well, and stressful. However, that was way more intellectual in nature, and the evolution was way more physical in nature. We still learned it both, but I appreciate both
Mhm.
of them. And one's not better than the other. I'm glad I had the opportunity to do both last year.
Yeah, I really enjoyed how was the speech? Because we didn't get the speech the first time because he wasn't one of the operators the first time.
Ah,
The
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 man
man
in
in
the
the
arena.
arena.
You talk
Yeah,
about
the man in
it's
the arena.
that quote stares back at me on my wall right up there.
I love it. Was that before or after?
Well, that's it. So I was first exposed to that quote back in 2003 when I
Okay.
sold books for the Southwestern company for my first and only summer. And that was one of the things that they taught us. And it always resonated with me. In fact, a friend was publishing a book last year that needed some extra pages. So it'd go from a booklet to a book. And
Yeah.
so she was asking for favorite quotes. So that's the quote I put in there. And that's the quote that the Navy SEAL William Branham said.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, when I got my promotion last year, one of our key executives from our company gave me that placard that now sits on the wall. So that quote's been
Oh,
with me for a while.
it was all like organic the way that happened. But
Mm,
that's I look for little things like that remind me that I'm in alignment with what I'm doing. And obviously you were when you got that promotion. That's awesome, man.
heck
Okay,
yeah.
so why sales? What got you into sales?
That's a good question, man. So for the longest time, I did not want to be in sales. I remember trading baseball cards in fourth and fifth grade and orchestrating these crazy trades, not just between me and you, but between me, you, someone else, some of these great big deals. And
Hmm.
someone's mom said to me, "Yeah, you should be a sales guy." And my viewpoint up to this point, like a lot of people, was this sleazy, "Hey, let's do a deal and see how much money
Yeah.
I can get out of you." And I'm like, I don't want nothing to do with that. So I avoided that destiny for quite some time. And but I also grew up pretty humbly, not a whole lot of income, So there's definitely some food stamps involved, definitely some powdered milk and WIC programs. And I also remember, it's funny, I just watched this movie last night, The Tetris Story. If you're a video game fan, that is a phenomenal movie on Apple TV about the links that they did to go get that here. But I grew up I was born in '79. So about in 1985, I was 6 years old, and Nintendo came out, and I
Hmm.
really, really wanted one. It was $99 plus tax, and so 105 out the door. And my parents said, "Hey, we don't have an extra $100," and I knew we didn't have a ton of money growing up. Kind of had everything we needed, a lot of love, a couple toys, but uh, I knew $100 was a decent amount of money in 1985, but it wasn't like an ungodly amount. And so I really was like, I never want to be in a situation where I don't have $100 for something that I might need or want, right? And
Right.
so probably, but this is a great story too, is how I got good at sales is I had to make friends with other people that had Nintendo so I could get invited to their house and go play. So I
There
had
you
to be
go.
sociable. I had to be likable and trustable to have over. So that little adversity gave me some leverage there in developing that skill set of interacting with other people.
Nice.
So
Were you able to raise the money for the Nintendo eventually, or?
eventually we had one. I remember I think I had to scoop snow. So I live in Nebraska. It gets really hot in the summer and really cold. And I
Yeah.
remember, I don't know, I can't remember who bought the Nintendo for me. It might have been my cool aunt or cool uncle because they're the ones that also bought me my Nike shoes. But
Mhm.
I do remember working hard, very very hard for several weeks and saving up enough money to buy the Legend of Zelda. Which was the
Oh yeah.
hot
Yeah.
game at the time. So I eventually got my hands on a Nintendo console, but while my friends had hundreds of games, I think I had like five, and two of them came with the system.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the only ones that I had was the ones that came with the system. I think it was Duck
Yeah,
Hunt, right? And
yep,
then
and
maybe
Mario Brothers.
Mario
Yep,
Brothers,
yep,
yeah. And it was like a front and back, or like both of them were in the same cartridge, right?
yep. You got to pick. Yeah,
Yeah, and then you had to like pull up the shirt to like blow on the cartridge.
you had to
Oh
rub it.
man,
You had to blow in it and rub
yeah.
it right just to get it to stand on
Say a
one foot.
prayer. I want to play my game today. No, that's awesome, man. So let's talk about the transition. I would imagine like most sales histories, you've had a few sales positions. One of them being Southwestern Consultant. I want to talk about that for a second because some of my favorite sales training, and I still do it to this day, selling the way customers want to buy.
Yeah.
That was Rory Vaden. The quote on the bottom of my email is Rory Vaden. You know what I mean? And he was an integral part of that company. And what was it like? I feel like you started out at the door-to-door company. You know what I'm saying? In my mind,
Yeah.
in terms of history and everything. Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I always tell people this, and maybe you can confirm it for me, but they were like the original, like, encyclopedias and Bibles, like the original book door-to-door salespeople.
Yeah, I might get this date wrong, so this might be plus or minus 2 to 5 years, but the way I remember it is they were selling Bibles door to door since 1868
That's
is when they
crazy.
started door to door, and
Yeah.
survived very shortly after the Civil War, survived World War I, the Great
Depression.
Depression, World War II,
Yeah.
all these things, and now they've diversified into a bunch of other companies, all direct sales related and performance based. That was just great. Here's another great story that kind of laid the foundation for this being uniquely trained for this. So I grew up, my mother was a Jehovah's Witness. So my
Oh,
dad was a
really?
non-practicing Catholic. So there's a
Mhm.
fight every year if we're going to celebrate Christmas or not. And so I grew up knocking on doors. So, when I was in first, second, third grade, I would be Saturday morning, I'd be knocking, I'd be like, knock, knock, knock in my little suit. And, hey,
Mhm.
Doug, how's it going? Great basketball game Friday. Do you want a copy of the Watchtower? No? Okay, we'll see you Monday, you know? And so I've been delivering miniature Bible sermons since I was 8 years old, and
Wow.
getting rated on timing and gestures, both emphatic and also descriptive and all sorts of, is it cohesive
Wow.
throughout? Is there a conclusion, an action item? And so just a lot of training early on to just put your head down, go to work. They taught me early on, not everybody's going to be interested that you talk to, and that's okay. You're not there for them. You're there for the people that do align with what you
Yeah.
have and want to visit, which is, in the J-Dub world, very, very short. I've sold a lot of things, books with Southwestern being one of them, cancer, heart attack, strokes, insurance now, which is near and dear to my heart since my father passed away from lung cancer when he was only 42 years old. But it's funny, I'll
Mhm.
tell you, cancer insurance is a lot easier to sell than Jesus, even though we need both.
Oh, man. Oh,
Uh, so back to the book days. Here's a funny.
yeah.
So I told you I avoided this. So my dad, again, we had humble beginnings. His idea was for me to go to college, and become an electrical engineer, get a safe, secure job, making six figures, something
Mhm.
he always wanted but never had, and right off into the sunset and retire with great benefits. But then, his getting cancer derailed that. That was my senior year of high school. So all of the family's focus went on him. And I just kind of floated, and I never took an ACT, never took an SAT. Unfortunately, he passed away in August of 97, right after I graduated. And so kind of went from being a kid to an adult pretty darn quickly. And
Yeah.
so I had to start providing for myself. So I actually started fixing copiers, for a business where I could get twice as much work done in half the time because I was technologically smart.
Yeah.
And just providing for myself. And I tried going to night school and doing some various things, but I hated copiers. I did that for 4 years, and I just absolutely I hated it so much that I actually got fired because I just didn't show up and didn't care. And I was a lot younger and less mature as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So it's a funny story. Actually, what got me fired is I called in sick for a week from Vegas, and when you're in your early 20s and you're in Vegas and you're up all night, you sound pretty sick. So I'm like, yeah, I still don't feel great. I'm not coming in. But somehow they found out that I was in Vegas, and they
That was
they fired
before
me.
social media, so
Oh, I don't know how they did that. I don't know how they
yeah.
did that. So I'm sitting there, and a buddy of mine who's I'm 23 at the time. My buddy's in college, going to the University of Nebraska. Tell me about this crazy internship he's going to do, and I'm like, I need a job. That sounds awesome. We could
Yeah.
party in New York City. He's like, nah, it's not really like that. I'm like, well, maybe we can hang out on the weekend. He's like, it's not like that either. I'm like, well, what is it like? And so he gave me the phone number of the guy that he was talking to. I called the guy up. Brian Wilson, still a dear friend to this very day. We talk almost every Friday as accountability partners. He officiated the ceremony of my wife and I down in Mexico in Cancun in 2012. Because not only did he teach me the book business, but he taught me this business as well. And
Wow.
I'm like, hey man, I want to come do this book thing. And he goes, I don't know if you qualify. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, I was a J-Dub since I was 5. Darn tootin' I qualify. So
Darn
we
tootin'.
went through we went through the interview process, and lo and behold, 2 weeks later, I was driving to Nashville, Tennessee to sell. So because I needed money quickly, I knew I could talk to people. And here's the other thing. Well, and you could win a trip to Mexico, and I've never I went to Germany with my grandmother in '86, when I was younger, because she was from Germany. But as an adult, going to an all-inclusive trip in Mexico with a bunch of other college kids is pretty awesome. And so
Yeah.
all of that was appealing to me. But I also knew, going back to the sleazy kind of traditional sales guys, like,
Yeah.
I have to believe in what I'm selling, right?
Right.
Otherwise, this isn't ice to Eskimos. It's not red popsicles to ladies in white
Right.
gloves. It's hey, I have something that you need. We're gonna have a value exchange, and I'm delivering just as much, probably more value in owning our product than I'm asking for in compensation. So
Right.
it's a value exchange. It's not selling crap to people that don't want or don't need. So these Southwestern study guides, these volume libraries, both of my parents were hippies and dropped out of school when they're 16 years old. So when I got to about seventh grade, my dad was very smart, very intellectual, very well read, self-educated. However,
Mhm.
he couldn't really do the schoolwork because back then you had to show the answers, right? They tell you that you'd never have a calculator in your pocket at all times, which who
Right.
the funk that. So
Yeah.
he could get the answer, but he couldn't show me. So I was kind of on my own. So books that help kids from kindergarten to their senior year with more examples and in writing reports and getting things done, I could have used those books. So I'm like, I can sell that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did for, gosh, what was it, 12 weeks of, 70 hours a week, door to door cold calling,
Wow.
in heat and rain and black flies. We think mosquitoes are bad in the Midwest. You should try black flies in Maine in the summer, man.
Are they
And
the
so that
ones
was,
that bite?
yeah,
They bite?
yeah, big time, big time. You can't see them and they bite
Wow.
barely. Yeah. So that was, and that was the toughest, hardest thing I'd ever done up to that point.
Mhm.
And I hated every minute of it, but I loved who I grew into in the process. I loved the successful people I was around, the quotes that I got. That's when I was first really
Resiliency.
introduced, yeah, to personal
Yeah.
development. They gave me a book by Og Mandino called The Greatest Salesman in the World, one of my
Yeah.
favorite books. We read a scroll every single day.
Mhm.
And it really, that was the first time I was exposed to the quote that said life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you choose to respond. That was a foreign concept to me up to that point. And
Yeah.
it really lit this fire of personal development. However, I swore I would never do anything like that again. In fact, on that trip, that summer, I decided I wanted to be an oncologist to help people that were going through what my father went through. So I got a job in clinical research here in Lincoln, where we live, doing phase 1 clinical trials. And so that was really what I was going to set off to do, is go through the path of actually going to college, getting my degree, and going to med school, becoming an oncologist.
Wow. Man, that's crazy. And what, I guess, at what point did it kind of turn you off of that?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good question too. Well, again, having to provide for myself, working 8, 10, 12 hours a day and going to night school for 4 hours, 5, 6 hours a night, and doing homework. About a year of that, and I was done. And as I was
Yeah.
getting older, I mentioned I was 23, just turned 24 selling books. So now I'm turning
Mhm.
25, 26. So the idea of, hey, I'm going to spend the next 15 years of my life going to undergrad, med school, residency, specialization before I can finally do what I want to do. That was just too long of a time horizon for me at that point.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. I mean, that's why a lot of people don't become, they have the capacity, they have the ability, but it's like, no, I don't want to spend, a third of my working career in school. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah,
no, I get
absolutely.
it for sure. So you got into family heritage at that point is what I'm assuming, or was there another product before that?
Yeah, so here's a great story too. So it was 2007, late 2006.
Mhm.
I had a ton of friends that made a bunch of money in the mortgage business. And,
Okay.
that was the days of subprime loans, stated income loans. And so
Yeah.
I knew
Right
that I did not
before.
want to be the
Yeah.
crash, right? So
Yeah.
I knew I didn't want to go to med school. I still love the medicine, but just didn't know what to do. So when my father died, a couple months later, my mom moved out. She got addicted to meth. My sister almost got taken away by the state. So I'm living in this house that was paid for through his
Mhm.
life insurance money, and just all by myself. So again, when I said I had to go from a kid to an adult pretty quickly, that's very accurate. Had a lot of, those are some pretty dark days, a lot of mistakes. Um, and so when my mom called me because she's running out of money a couple of years later, said, "Hey, I need to sell the house." I said, "Hey, let me buy it. Half of my dad's ashes are in the backyard in his rose garden, right? I want to buy
Yeah.
this house." Had no business buying this house. The bank wouldn't give me a loan, right?
Right.
So I go to the phone book and I go to mortgage and I call the first person, like, "Yeah, we can get it done." Well, I looked and it was something ridiculous, like 13% 2-year arm adjustable rate. So I kind of got screwed on the mortgage side as well.
Right.
I was only able to afford 2 payments before I couldn't afford the payment, and I just punted and gave up on that, unfortunately. So again, going back to believing in what you're selling, I'm like, yes, I can help
Mhm.
people and actually put them in win-win-win scenarios where there's a value exchange. And yes, we're going to get compensated for that, but they're going to get in a better, they're going to be in a better position, not a worse position like I was. So
Yeah.
if I can make money while doing that, absolutely. So I picked about the worst time ever, December of 2006 to get involved in the mortgage business. And so I watched that thing collapse from '07 all the way till
Mhm.
probably, it was about March of '08. And we had some ups, we had some downs, we had some crazy times. The last 3 months were horrible. But in the middle of all that, in 2006, so our company was owned by the Southwestern company until they were acquired back in 2012. So that there was a lot of book people doing that business.
Nice.
And so my mentor, Brian Wilson, was doing it. Another buddy of mine was working there. And so I bought a cancer plan from him. And
Hmm.
he showed this to me. And I was under 30 years old. It was $50 a month for the best plan they had. And it helped people financially as they're going through cancer, because health insurance will pay the doctor bills, but not your bills. So again, going back to my family situation, my
Right.
dad was a blue collar guy. He worked at Cushman here in Lincoln. They did industrial lawn equipment and scooters and stuff like that. So he
Mhm.
had long-term disability, but not short-term. So I remember the 90-day wait with no income. I remember, we didn't live on the streets, but they filed bankruptcy to protect the bank. They gave his truck back. I got out of high school early to drive him back and forth to treatments. So I lived through that. And so one of the
Yeah.
benefits they had, though, was a travel benefit, so that if you go over 80 miles from home, they'll do flights or mileage. So I'm thinking to myself, man, if my dad would have went to the Mayo Clinic or MD Anderson or one of these premier places, maybe he'd even still be here. Maybe it would have saved his life. And so I'm like, yeah, $50 a month, sign me up for that. So I bought a plan in '06. My buddy was like, you know what, you given your background and your success selling books, you'd probably be good at this. And I'm like, nah, I'm going to be a cancer doctor. Nah, I'm going to be a mortgage guy. And then that same guy called me some fateful Friday in March of 2008 and said, hey, you want to go get a beer? And I'm like, dude, forget the beer. Are you guys still hiring? Because this mortgage stuff is crazy. So that's how I finally landed where I've been for the past 15 years.
Man, I've had conviction behind all the products that I've sold because I wouldn't start selling them unless I did. But man, that's another level of conviction. I love the background and the reason that you're doing this today, and probably the reason you've never given up even in the darkest of times, because you know that, hey, it can't be worse than that. You know what I'm saying? And
Exactly.
every family that you sign up, it's like you got to feel like you're signing up your own family, man. I mean, it's just that's a beautiful thing right there. Okay,
Yeah, the
well, that
impact is just
conviction,
crazy.
yeah, that conviction obviously led you to to be able to recruit and build these teams, right?
Hmm.
What do you feel like? I, what else do you feel like attributed to that though? It, in your ability to do that, is it more of the system that they had set up for you guys to execute on, or is it more like, hey, you're one of those people that can walk into a room and recruit like three people? Do you feel
Yeah,
like
that's
it's
probably not so much the latter, because here's the thing: all of these things that we're describing are skills, right? And
Mhm,
skills can be developed, and there's some people that have a greater natural tendency to do well in these areas.
mhm,
Um, I'm actually not one of those people. I talk about this all the time with the people that I'm blessed to mentor and lead and to train. Is that, like, I sucked at every aspect of this career at first.
yeah,
Sucked at it. Like, I had to put in more work than the average bear, and but I'm stubborn and I'm tenacious, and I don't stop. And maybe I'll take a time out, but I'll get back re-engaged. And so I was a good salesperson again because I had to be. I had $1,000 in the bank and
mhm,
$3,000 in monthly obligations. So I was in this, you know. And again, I read these articles that say the average American only has $400 in the bank. So comparatively speaking, it
yeah,
seems decent. However, that's only 10 days of operating cash in the bank. Like, that's as close to insolvency as you can get without actually getting there.
yeah,
So failure was an option. I had to put my head down and go to work. And yeah, I only made $200 my first week after studying, licensing, sales academy.
mhm,
So I was like, oof, kick in the stomach.
yeah,
Time. I love this quote from The Devil's Advocate. It's a movie with Al Pacino and Keanu Reeves. And Al Pacino is playing the devil, and he's looking at Keanu Reeves, and he goes, you know, pressure changes everything. Some people
mhm,
focus, and other people fold. He's like, which one are you? And that always stuck with me too. And I watched that in the late '90s. I'm like, I got to focus, man. That's all I got to do. I got to put my head down, go to work, and focus. So that's what I did. And after a while, being a top producer, I was like, you know what? I like teaching. They'd ask me to speak on conference calls and, hey, can you give us 3 points on how you had a great week? Can you give us, 30 minutes on how to have a great quarter? Can you give us 30 minutes on how to plan the next best quarter? So I'm like, man, I really like this stuff. I should get paid to do this. And how you get paid to do that is you teach other people and then they go do it. Right.
Right.
And so I started doing that. And I wasn't very good at that because my original strategy was, hey, follow me, watch what I do, write everything down and just copy me. And I wasn't very duplicatable. And so I had to really learn how to systematically teach people systems and processes and things that it didn't matter who they were, that if they follow these steps, they were going to yield to, and they got in front of enough people, they were going to yield in success. And so that was a process right there. And then after being good at sales and good at teaching other people, I'm like, well, you know what? I'll get compensated more if I find these people myself. So I should probably just do that. I sucked at that at first too, I love the line, "Hey, come follow me." One of the greatest recruiters ever, right? Although he only got 12 original, 11 that stuck. So his turnover was actually pretty good, but that didn't work for me. People need more than just come follow me.
Yeah.
Especially when it's their business and their family. And so I had to get good at talking to people, finding out what they want in their next adventure. Why are they actively dissatisfied in their current adventure? Are we a good fit? This is not. I do not believe in hiring everybody, the spaghetti against the wall approach, like, the meat grinder. We're going to throw as much stuff against that wall and see what sticks, because some of it will, most of it won't. And that's a huge disservice to everybody involved. So you got to find people that, they're a good fit for us and we are a good fit for you. And being able to systematize that and have a process for identifying it and fine tuning that over, it's taken a lot of time and effort and practice, but it's all skills is when it boils down to skills that can be practiced and developed.
Yeah, and I want to highlight the point that you're making, which is, so many business owners, sales managers, sales leaders, they think that they're going to bring someone in, they're going to train them, which training them is, like you said, hey, come do what I do, and that's just going to transfer by osmosis, and let's forget just certain people learn certain ways, like visually, by reading. Audibly, like everybody learns in different ways. Put that aside, you're teaching everybody differently because they're learning differently. So you're getting, even though you're the only person teaching, you're getting 3 different results, instead of having something systemized, something written down, which sounds so crazy now in our digital age. But that's the first thing I always either do for my clients or tell my clients to do is like write down the process. Like what you're talking about right now, where's it written down? And they're like, oh, nowhere. It's like, that's why you hired me. It's like, let's write it down, because then it's duplicatable. Then it's, part of a system and everybody's learning the same way because it's written one way and everybody sees the same SOP for it or the same script or the same video training tutorial. So what are you guys doing now? From back then, I would imagine all these systems were on paper, right? Are you guys entering the digital age in that sense? Or what are you guys doing now? Do y'all have a back end that they can go through all the training, or how does it work?
Yeah, it's under constant, the highway of life is under constant construction, right? And the same is true of business. So I chuckled because I remember, I don't have them anymore. I used to have these stacks of legal pads with we called them mapping, where we would draw a street and put tick marks for houses. We'd put blue house, white house. About every block, I'd try to put a house number so I would at least know if I'm on the 200 block and which side's odd or even. And we just cross them off, highlight them, and that this is how we got around in the early day, in the book days end here. My first 2 years here was residential door to door. I didn't transition to calling on businesses to roughly 2010. I didn't even do it full time till probably, 2014. So we've got an enterprise build CRM with Salesforce that we can actually keep track of where we are, where we need to go visually by lead status. We can look up our client information rather than having to call the home office. We can do a lot of things actively in the field in real time, monitor that stuff. As far as training work, I'm constantly polishing that stuff as well. In fact, I was talking to one of our hiring manager yesterday, who about a year, we got in this document yesterday, and it was a year ago since we've been in this document, that is the processes that she follows of sourcing, identifying, screening, interviewing, second interviewing, all the things that we do in our process to try to identify are people a good fit for us. And she's like, well,
Yeah.
why do we have to do this? And I'm like, well, she's like, I know what I'm doing. I'm like, but when it's written down, it's one, it gets out of our head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And two, we can look at it and we can see it, and then we can tweak it. And you can work harder or you can work smarter. And I'm a fan of doing both. And when you start playing with these KPIs, if we can get 5% better here and 5% better here and 5% better here,
Yeah.
a lot of people think that's 15% better. That could be 100% better with those two little tweaks, and that's very
Yeah.
difficult to do when it's only swimming inside one person's head. Plus, the other thing that I found is as you grow and scale, the whole come follow me approach is not a very good knowledge transfer. So to have a database, standard operating procedures, processes, and systems in place, it makes training the next level of people infinitely easier. It's definitely a little bit of work on the front end, but it saves a whole lot of
Mm-hmm.
work on the back end as far as training goes. And so that's why we're doing it.
Absolutely. And it's, that's obviously y'all's recruiting and eventually onboarding plan, right? But what would happen so many times when we did stuff like this in my business is like, one or two things would happen. It would be the first thing that would happen is they would get insecure, like, hey, you don't think I can do my job, right? And then the second thing that would happen is they get insecure again, like, oh, you're doing this so you can replace me someday. And it's like, no, and yes, I'm doing it so I can replace you, but it's not because I'm going to replace you and get rid of you. It's because I'm going to replace you and promote you. You know what I'm saying? Like
Exactly.
every
And,
position.
and
Go ahead.
no, you go ahead. I interrupted you.
Every position in the company should have a next level, in
Mhm.
to infinity, right? And in infinity may be a different division. Infinity may be a different designation or whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, I want everybody in my organization to be able to experience growth at some point. You know what I'm saying? And so if you can't be replaced, then you can't be promoted. And the only way you're going to be replaced is if you have an SOP to be able to replace you with, because the idea of you sitting next to someone at a computer and showing them how to do stuff, it's painful.
Well, and unfortunately, that's how she was hired, because that was the processes 2 years ago.
Right.
So I mean, when I say these are recent developments, and we're still
Yeah.
tweaking our processes, and I'm always trying new things, and we're like a master chef, just always trying to try the
Yeah.
what's the one thing we can do to always be improving. Growth is one of our core values, and that's being better today than we were yesterday, and better tomorrow than we are today. And I'm
Mhm.
constantly just noodling on that and dreaming about it and fantasizing about how do we do that.
No, I love it, and I do. I say it all the time. The sales program is a living, breathing organism. That you
Mhm.
constantly have to be, because it itself is changing without you even touching it, because everybody in it goes through it, and like, I don't know, this is such a philosophical way to look at it, but they stretch it and they break it and they start changing things without telling you. You know what I mean, in the program. And so you have to be on top of it. You have to be able to work on the business instead of in the business. And so that brings me to another question is, all right, are you still personally producing? You know what I'm saying? And how important do you think it is to lead from the front and personally produce?
Oof, that's a solid question, and the key of a lot of debates in a lot of different industries, I'd imagine. So,
Hmm.
yes, I'm still personally producing. I personally produced last week when I was on vacation with my family in Deadwood, South Dakota for the week, and seeing Mount Rushmore and going panning for gold and all this other stuff. I also hired two people while I was on vacation and
Hmm.
got stuff done and just built my schedule around it, so I'm a big fan of, you can have your cake and eat it too. You just have to be intentional and do things on purpose rather than accident, right? And so I'm
Right.
very, very, and a lot of what I've learned over the years, doesn't matter if it's this or sales, or is like, oops, that didn't work. Don't do that again. There's way more oopses than there was aha moments. And every once in a while I'll get and so if you just do the stuff, if you just stop doing the stuff that doesn't work, you'll be 10 times ahead of everybody else. And then if you come across and stumble across these aha moments, that helps even more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's an example. There's definitely value in leading from the front, for sure. However, I think there's a dichotomy there, like Jocko talks about at Echelon Front, that you can get to a point where you lead from the front so much that that's not the highest and best use of your time. and producing individually. I like to prove that this old dog can still hunt. In fact, a couple of months ago, I was the number 2 producer out of 70 people in our combined 2 agencies, the one I got
Beautiful.
promoted out of that we still office together. And so
Yeah.
I did that, and I'm half joking, half serious. I'm like, I just want you guys to know I still know what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
look, when you do say come follow me, and this is something that my mentor told me, is like, you need to have a track record of success. So I can point to top first year producer, I can point to this,
Yeah.
I can point to that. And then the thing is it that they don't care what I did in 2008. They don't care that I had a record January in 2017. Every once in a while you still got to show them. So, and I
Yeah.
do. However, I think people get trapped there, and again, this happens in businesses across all sectors, is that the strategies that enable you to go from startup to bootstrapping to scaling at some point are the same strategies that will then bottleneck you. When you're doing everything and you don't have positions hired out, you can't be all things to all people at a certain point. And so I think some people take the leading from the front in the field selling to the extreme, and that inhibits their growth. That's not the full-time highest and best use of my time. It's good to show them I can do it. However, that doesn't mean you can't lead by example in other areas, right? Like, guess who was up at 4:45 this morning working out, taking care of my body?
Exactly.
Guess who listens to podcasts when he does that? Guess who listens to books? Guess who has a stack of books? I mean, I've got The Ultimate Sales Machine by Amanda Holmes. Phenomenal book. She actually redid that. Yeah, Chet and Amanda Holmes. She actually came and spoke to our group. I've developed somehow this kind of just relationship and friendship with her because we had her come speak to our group, which is awesome.
That's beautiful.
21 Laws of Leadership, never finished. Traction. I mean, we don't have Fabio romance novels over here. We don't have, Atomic Habits, because I try to be my own Fabio in my world. We don't have Harry Potter, And I don't have the long hair, but I have the beard, so I might braid it here a little bit. I don't know. All sorts of stuff.
Can't have it all, but we can have some of it for sure. No, I love it, man.
So you can lead by example, and you can be the most dedicated, the most hardworking. You can show up early, you can leave late. You can show people that you can live the life. Part of what we talk about is all the money in the world doesn't matter if you don't get to do what you want to do with it, right? And so part of our vision that we lay out for other people is by changing the world by protecting one family at a time, which is our mission. You get to live the life of your dreams, achieve your goals, and live by your priorities and your values. Not what do I want, or your parents, or the Joneses, or the government. What do you want it to be? And so I have to be the example of that, which is why I was able to model a workcation in Deadwood, had a blast, and got a lot done. So it doesn't necessarily have to be production, to your question. I think there's value in that, but it doesn't have to be.
No, I couldn't agree more. And the way you explained that dichotomy was perfect. I mean, that's what people need to hear, is that at some point you make that shift. And yeah, it's fun to be the top dog for a month every now and then and have a little fun with it. But that's more for you than it is for them. You know what I'm saying? Like, at that point,
a little bit.
It's like just it's like me when I get on the basketball court and I play with a bunch of 20-something-year-olds and I give them the freaking old man, hip thrust or whatever and score my points and then walk off the court because everything hurts.
Old man judo. Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're booking the massage and the chiropractor. They don't need to know about that part.
All right, brother. So one more business related question, and it's about recruiting, because obviously your company is a recruiting machine. So do you guys incentivize like that self-gen recruiting, and kind of how is that structured? Because I think a lot of people are always looking for the ads and what website should I go to, what personality tests and all that type of, and all that stuff works really well, especially with longer term positions or higher level positions. But at the end of the day, I have not been able to replace a top salesperson that brings in their friend, and their friend knows them and has seen what they've done. So they have so much more conviction when they walk in the door, like, hey, I want to be here. And I had the stats on it. They produce 5 times as much as the people from ads. So how do you guys, drive those self-gen recruits?
Yeah, it's a fabulous question. We're a work in progress on that. However, what's funny is I'm one of those recruits. All of the top producers in our organization is someone knew someone that connected the interview that got them here. And there's still great things with the ads and the job boards and things like that. I'm a big fan of diversify. It's just like you're going to cold call, you're going to generate referrals, you're going to do callbacks, because guess what? Sometimes the referrals hit, sometimes the cold calls, But if you put all your eggs in one basket, that's setting yourself up for catastrophic failure. So I think
Yeah.
recruiting efforts are the same way. So
Well,
you get what you promote. And so
mhm.
we're doing our best to turn that ship and to talk about it a lot and to incentivize it. There's extra financial rewards. However, I've also learned that while money makes the world go round, it doesn't motivate everybody all the time. And so, the classic American way is to just throw a bunch of money at it and hope it solves the problem. So that's just one of the recipes. Really the message that I'm trying to deliver now to people is just having a conversation with people that are on my team and say, hey, what is this career meant to you? And they'll talk
Mhm.
about all the stuff that we talked about, the lifestyle, all the stuff. I'm like, great. What do you think it would mean to someone else? Oh, I think it'd be incredible. Do you know that you're doing them a disservice by not at least bringing them up? It doesn't mean they have
Yeah.
to come work with us. We might not be a good fit, but I'm a firm believer that your conviction on the value of, like, you're convicted about our product. That's why you're motivated to go talk about it. You believe in it.
Right.
Same thing's true with this career. Is your
Opportunity.
level of conviction on this career is directly proportional to the amount of time you're willing to spend talking to other people about it, and not just family and friends, but just in the field. When you run across someone that, it could be a server. Shoot, I was at an event a couple weeks ago that said, we troll workout facilities like LA Fitness and high end
And wait
servers.
staff.
Those are our two biggest things. Yeah, and so they gave this question that's awesome. And I wrote this question down and I shared it with my people that I work with is, who else do you know that's like you? We're growing,
Oh,
we're expanding. I can't guarantee I'd hire anybody. I could at least get them an interview.
yeah.
Who do you know that's like you? I mean, that's a very simple, I don't even know what that was. Four
Man, you could use that
sentences.
with clients too.
Yeah. People that
Who
buy
do
your
you
products are your
know
best advocate.
that values, this product,
Yeah.
like you do? That's a great question. I love that. Huge value, brother. I appreciate that. No, what you said about not putting all your eggs in one basket is so true, because so many recruiters right now are putting all their eggs in the Indeed basket. And it
Mm.
is very much a let's throw everything up against the wall and see what sticks recruiting platform. Costs a ton of money. And then
Tons.
at any given time, they can cut you off for no
Yeah,
reason.
and I've had friends that have been blacklisted and have
Yeah,
no explanation as to why. And then guess what? They're up Lollipop Creek without a paddle because no one's taught them how to hunt for leads and generate them out of thin air, which is what I
exactly.
love and what I hate about the business that I've grown up in is that you could literally drop me out of an airplane, and as long as I have my iPad with my stuff on it, I'll be fine because I'm not
Yeah.
reliant on anybody for anything as far as lead gen anywhere. And I can take a cold market, turn to a warm market quickly, whether it's sales, leadership,
Mhm.
recruiting, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
All right, I want to pivot a little bit because we don't have that much time left, but I want to pivot to legacy. What does it mean to you, and what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Oof. Wow, that's a good question. I thought we were gonna talk all about team and stuff and building and sales, legacy. Um, you know, I've got three kids that they are currently 8, 6, and 3. And I love my father dearly, but um, he was an alcoholic. Um, he cheated on my mom, which I found out long after he died. And so here's what happened to me is when my mom in a kind of a drunken, we're both drunk talking about stuff, how life sucks. And she's like, well, let me tell you about your father. He's not the man you thought he was. And I mean, that crushed my soul when I realized that he was not the man that he portrayed to be or that I thought he would be. And so I made a decision there that I never want my kids to have that feeling, right? Never.
Mhm.
So back in July of 2015, a 2-month experiment has turned into, which will be something like 8 years of not drinking. I never want to have to wake my kids up and go pick up my father out of jail like I had to get picked up. I never want them to see me come home from a street fight bloody. I mean, maybe if the guy deserved it, he's talking crap to my family, maybe, but not a bar fight, not a bar
Yeah,
fight.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, you know, my dad had some life insurance when he passed, but that was just, he got lucky. Our family got lucky that was the term life insurance he had through work. And we're lucky that he didn't, by today's standards, he probably would have been fired and out of insurance and out of his life insurance. And again, that didn't last very long. So
Yeah.
I want to leave a legacy of example for my kids of more of what to do and more and less of what not to do. And again, I'm a sinful, fallen human creature. I yell at my kids. I get frustrated,
Yeah, absolutely.
but I never want to have those major things that I experienced. And then I love the Warren Buffett quote is leave enough money that they can do whatever they want, but not do nothing. And so one of my biggest struggles right now is trying to identify ways, because part of the reason that I am who I am is just the adversity that I went through. And that
Mhm.
adversity sucks. And my sister, who's 4 years younger than me, still hasn't fully recovered from that adversity that
Yeah.
happened 26 years ago. So
Most people don't, man.
how it's
Yeah.
brutal and it's heartbreaking because she's just as skilled and talented as I am and intelligent.
Mhm.
So how do I create some controlled adversity so my
Yep.
kids can build these characteristics without crushing them under life? That's really what I want to do. So that my mission is that when they're 17 years old, they're running their own life. I don't have to wake them up. I don't have to, a lot of people will wait till college and then try to teach their kids to be adult. That's too late. They're already gone. I want to
Yeah.
teach them. At 17, their senior year, whatever's happening, they're running their own life. And I'm just kind of more of a tour guide and a counselor at that point.
No, I love it, brother. And yeah, that convicted me just now. It's like
Mm,
when my sons, and I say my sons because my daughter's pretty self-sufficient already. She's only 12. But my sons, when they're 17, can they run their own life? No, that's a great goal to have. And I love that your legacy is focused on your kids. And
mhm.
that's how I would describe it, a legacy of focus. Because we have these big goals. You have business goals, you have impact goals, you know what I mean? But all you talked about was your kids. And I think because you are hyper focused on them, that there's no way you're not going to leave them with a legacy that you intended. You know what I mean? Which
Yeah,
is an intentional one, right? And so,
absolutely.
brother, I
I'll,
appreciate you. Go ahead.
I'll leave you one last story. I know you got a call here in 2 minutes. So do I. Actually, I don't. Mine got pushed. So everybody's watching you all the time. As leaders, we are always on stage. And so my kids, a while ago, last year, just started getting up with me at 5 in the morning. And initially, I was frustrated because it inhibited my ability to get a full workout in.
Right.
But I instantly realized the opportunity that we had here. And so today, I went in their beds. I woke them up, said, "Hey, I'm going to work out." And my daughter opted to go cuddle with mom, which is totally, it's always their choice. Jackson, my son, got up and he did a workout with me. And
Oh,
my workout was not as intense as it would have been had I been able to do it by myself. I did not get to listen to my podcast that I wanted to, but I don't really care because the impact that that's leaving on them and that example and that bonding time, no one was doing that stuff for me when I was a kid. And again, I love my parents. They did the best that they had, but just realize that as leaders, and we're all leaders, even if you're a highly motivated team of one,
hmm,
people are watching you. I had a conversation with a gentleman yesterday that I have not seen in years. And he mentioned some things that he's seen on Facebook and complimented me on. I'm like, wow, you don't even like or comment on this stuff,
yeah.
And I just went out of my head. So people are watching you. So I want to leave a legacy of example for everybody, really, but especially my kids because I love them. No offense, I love you dearly. I just love them a little bit more.
I love my kids a lot more. I'll be honest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, I love the workout with your son, man. I mean, we try our best to manufacture that time and they're not always about it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-mm.
And so when we get an opportunity like that, and we have to pivot, we have to sacrifice in our personal goals, then it's worth it all day long because we'll get so much
Absolutely.
more fulfillment out of that than our own personal stuff. So 100%, man. Again, I appreciate you coming on the show, taking the time out, brother. And I know we had some technical difficulties starting out on both ends, but we got it done, man. And I think it's gonna be a great
Tenacity.
episode. Absolutely,
Tenacity
brother.
is a virtue, baby.
All
Yeah, thanks
right,
for having me. It's a pleasure.
let's get building.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Building Great Sales Teams. We appreciate it. Be sure to execute on everything that you just heard, and let's get building. Before we sign off, we'd like to invite you to join our Brickyard community. Head on over to jointhebrickyard.com. Again, that's jointhebrickyard.com, or click the link in the description to find out more.